All right, let's look at setting up a camera and rendering out a high quality scene. All right, I'm going to do this right on the guitar file. So first of all, you want to make sure you have all your materials looking really good. This is an incompleted image I'm working here with. You want chrome everywhere that's supposed to be chrome. I have a lot of things I just haven't done materials on yet. So you want that to be all good, and you want to set up some lighting, a, a spotlight or something to cast shadows, and some kind of an omni or skylight to make some to fill in the dark areas. You probably will want to tweak that after setting up the camera, but you can at least get it started. So the reason we put a camera in is really the only real reason for it is to have a fixed position that you can compose into a finished image, right? Because the perspective viewport, we're moving all around on that thing while we're modeling, and if every time, if you're tweaking the final details on how this image is going to look, and you're changing it all the time, that's not good, right? You want to have it fixed. So a camera is a thing that exists in the scene, just like a light, sort of, but you're looking through it, and you can always come back to that point to render, right? And make small adjustments so it will look good. So to make a camera, all right, again, it's something we're going to create. So we go over to our create panel on the right side, and just past lights is cameras, okay? And you want to have a target camera, okay? Physical is one that's more complicated that probably is useful for Arnold render or something, but target and free are basically the same thing. It's just like target and free lights. With the free one, you have to point it in a different direction. You have to rotate it. And with target, you can just move the target or move the camera. So that's kind of easier to manipulate. This one is for another renderer that you guys don't have that I'm using on occasion. So all right, so I'm going to go to target, and now I'm going to draw once or click once to make the camera, and then drag to make the direction it's pointing in. So you have to do it in a viewport that makes sense to do that in, and for me and probably for you, it's going to be the right viewport. So I'm going to click and drag like this. And again, I'm not going to put the thing inside there because it's hard to grab it. I'm just going to put it right in front like that, the target. All right. And then just go to selected move, so we're not making cameras anymore. And then, so what I normally do is I swap between the camera and perspective for this bottom right viewport, and I leave these ones front, top, right, or front, top, left, depending. Okay, I can also make this left, right? I can just put it back to right for the moment. All right. So perspective is over here. If I just hit C, it's going to be the camera view. If I hit P, it goes back to perspective, but it's still, see it says perspective there, but it's still looking from the direction of the camera. But if I rotate around on it, see there's the camera up above there. So if I go to C, back to C for camera, now I can just select, say, the camera, and I can adjust my position there, right? The composition. And I can also grab the target and move it around there in whatever viewport I want. If I don't want it looking straight in, I can move it, give it a little angle like that. All right, so there's our camera. And again, it's just P for perspective. If you want to go back to rotating around, which, while you're modeling, and then C for camera, or if you forget that, it's just in the viewport label, it's camera 01, all right? And when you're in the camera, you can also navigate the middle mouse, pushing down the mouse wheel and stuff to orbit won't work quite the same way, but you can use the navigation, the 8 navigation buttons down here in the lower right that will let you do that stuff, okay? Probably better to have angle snap turned off in this when you're positioning a camera. See how it's snapping like that? But anyway, you don't really need to do that. You can just, like I said, just move it by moving the camera around. All right. So here's the thing. So let's say we want to make a good rendering. Right? If I just say F9, all right. Now, for one thing, we want to have, you don't want to see any of this black, black space. So you want to make sure that at the very least, the geometry and walls or tables or whatever it is you're using to fill out the scene covers the whole composition area. Okay. Now, here's an interesting phenomenon. See this little kind of like triangle of black down there? Notice how it's quite different from the size of it up here, right? That's because we're rendering out to a specific aspect ratio, right? Whatever it is, 640 by 480, I think is the default. And that's not necessarily the aspect ratio of, this viewport. So we need to fix that. So this viewport is showing the same aspect ratio as our rendering, so we're trying to make a composition here. And if you can't see where the edge of the composition is, it's kind of hard to work, right? So if you just go to the camera label there, right, and go show safe frames, right? Now that's 640 by 480. Okay, see how the size of the triangle there is, it's matching, all right? And now I know, oh, I can get a little closer to that thing for sure, right? Because we want this rendering to show off your work, right? That's the point of it. And the main thing is the guitar. You can put in two guitars. You can do them at some kind of angle, like this or something to make it look as cool as possible. So now let's set up the actual resolution for the thing. Because this 640 by 480, first of all, is ridiculously low resolution. We want something really sharp, like 3,000 pixels or something in that area. And also, this is kind of square-ish. And I would probably think it looks a little nicer if it's either more rectangular or perfectly square. I usually kind of use, well, it depends on the image. But let's go to render setup, and get that in order. So this area right here, see, we're in 640 by 480. I can change it to 800 by 600. And you notice that the aspect ratio of the window doesn't change, okay? That's because these 640 by 480, these are all the same aspect ratio, okay? These four presets here, which I don't even know why exactly those are there. But let's do, let's see. So then the other question is, do you want it to be portrait or landscape, right? And we got to consider that before we do anything. Probably portrait is going to be better unless you have the guitar laying down like this. When we do it in class live, we print these things out, with nice photo paper in class and hang them all on the wall in the student art show. And I always wanted them all to look the same. So I would try to get everybody to make them all in portrait mode. But we're not doing that this year. So I think you can do it whichever one you want. So I'll do this in portrait first. Okay. So let's say I want the height to be 3,000 pixels. Okay. Wow. See that? Okay. And maybe the width to be 2,400. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, right? Okay, you don't want to get too far off here because now I can't really see the details on the other end. Maybe where's that camera? Well, this is up to you guys to decide what you want it to look like. Now I see the details there, but not on the other. Maybe I need two guitars and show them off and put them side by side or something. Okay. Anyway, continuing on here though, I could fool with this thing all day. So we're at 3000 by 3000 tall by 2400 wide. Okay. Now, as long as you can make this aspect ratio, you know, whatever you want here. If you say, oh, I like a 3000 tall, but I want a 2800 wide. Okay, that's fine. If I'm a little more square or whatever, that's fine. Make it how you want. Okay, as long as it's let's say as long as the biggest number is 3000, because if it's lower than that, we can't really see the details and you know, see what's what. All right, so now when you render it, you're going to find that this, particularly if you have like a skylight with the cast shadows turned on, it's going to take a long time to render, right? And so what you can do is see this image aspect right here. There's that's a little padlock thing right there, okay? And now if I turn this down to 300, okay, they're locked together, so the other one changes also. And now I can do, you know, a real fast render just while you're working, if I want it lower, or if I make it, you know, whatever, 1500, okay, it'll always, okay, it'll always change the width automatically for you, all right? Just to speed things up while you're working. But when you make the final render, let's put that back to 3000. Okay. All right. If you wanted it to be portrait, you just swap those two. So they'll make this landscape instead of portrait. 3000 by what did I say, 2400. Oh, got to turn off image the lock here to do this. 2400. Okay. Doesn't look quite. It looks a little squarish there, but it's just how it looks. Okay. It must be my monitor. I'm not sure if that's showing up for you on in this recording or not. But to me, when I look at this, it looks a little more square than it did when it was vertical. Okay. But anyway, I'm actually going to go back to the other way. 2400 by 3000. Yeah, interesting. And then lock the image aspect. All right. So when you render, you know, of course you can go F9. See how long this takes. And that didn't take too long. And you can just hit the little save image thing up there and just make sure you're saving a JPEG, right? What I actually usually do is go to this render output area, files, and I direct it to where I want it to go. I save as type JPEG, right? Call it whatever. You know, make that, sorry, make that the thing I just zoomed past there, just make that best quality, right? And make sure it's going into somewhere that it should be, which mine isn't, but okay. And then when you save the file, this will all be saved here. And then when you hit render, you don't have to click on this little save image thing because it will render to wherever you direct it to go to. I do this all the time. I almost never use this little save image thing here. Yeah, so then let's hand it in and try to make the guitar as good as you can. Use you know, nice textures instead of this crap that I have on here. And I think I've covered everything regarding cameras. Oh, let me just go back and with the camera selected, I think I may have, let's go to modify, right? And there's a lot of stuff in cameras that we just don't really need to work with particularly. However, this stuff, this on the top of the parameters here, there's different, like if you've done photography with a camera, not with a phone, you know probably about different lenses. And the lower numbers, these are just some presets here, but you can go up to lens here and type in whatever you want. So the lower numbers are wider angles. So a 50 millimeter lens is like super wide angle. Around 50 millimeters is like normal, I guess you'd call it. And then above that is telephoto. All right. So you can change this to, and it defaults to like what is that, 43 or something, which is kind of like an average looking lens. And you're fine using that. But if you want to make a more extreme result, you can change the the length of the lens here, and combined with zooming in or zooming out. All right, so just to make an example here, let's say I go with a 50 millimeter lens. So that makes a super wide angle, more perspective. So my my guitar looks small. I can still zoom back in close, and it creates a very distorted effect. All right, that's really wide angle. All right, maybe something not quite as wide, like 34, and then zoom out. Maybe I like that. All right. Oftentimes, I use a somewhat telephoto lens if I want to make something look not distorted by perspective, right? Because telephoto lenses tend to flatten perspective, right? So if I go 200 millimeters, it zooms you in, so you have to zoom back out again. I'm just using zoom here. I could just be moving the camera. I'm going to turn off angle snap for this. See, so here it is with with it turned up to 200, and you see very little perspective, and you can turn it even higher than that. But on certain things with a telephoto, it'll look a little with very little perspective, right? There's still perspective at 200 millimeters, but not a lot. Sometimes it can look a little awkward that way, and probably you're better off like around 50 millimeters. Let me zoom back in here. That's going to be the most natural look, but I'm just showing you this so you have control over it. Yeah. So let's make a nice render. We get this thing wrapped up. We can go on and do some animation. We still have time for that.